this is a prism. Not necessarily drawn perfectly, but I think you get the idea. Hopefully you get the idea. Gavin, join us. A prism has two bases. They're two parallel faces or surfaces, and they're exactly the same. The other four sides around this prism are called lateral faces. Record. Let me say a little bit of that again since I wasn't recording. So that we all agree, and we'll get the same answer each time. When it comes to a prism, okay, when it comes to, I should say, a rectangular prism. That's what I meant to say. When it comes to a rectangular prism, we will always agree that the base will be whichever side it's sitting on. Okay? However it's drawn, it'll be sitting and resting on one of the faces. That will always be the base. Now that's only true with a rectangular prism where every face is a rectangle. Okay? When every face is a rectangle, whichever face it's sitting on will be the base. Now again, we have to agree on this because on the test there will be a question in which the answer key didn't do that. I'm aware of it, and it's not going to be an issue for you, okay? Because it's not going to be a multiple choice question. And so all I have to do is when I check it, I will, again, always look at your work. And when your answer doesn't match mine, I will realize the first person that showed his work that, hey, wait a minute, you did it correctly. They didn't follow our rule, and I'll change my answer key. Okay? So you don't have to worry about it. I will fix that. I'm aware of that problem when we get to it, and I'll fix it. All right? So that if it's a rectangular prism, now this one isn't really drawn as a rectangular prism because this base right here kind of has what is a shape. I know it's badly drawn, but it's a square, right? So this would be a square prism. Okay? It's not drawn perfectly, but that was the intent, that this is a square prism. But if I drew a rectangular prism, then that, whichever side it's sitting on, will be its base. All right, let's move on to what's about this. What's important about a prism. An altitude is a line perpendicular to both bases. It measures the height of the prism. An altitude is a line perpendicular to both bases. It measures the height of the prism. So if we go back to this picture, we don't have one drawn here, but we could use any one of these edges since they're perpendicular to that base, perpendicular to this base. Okay, that could be my altitude. Could measure the height. Okay, I could draw my line in here, and if it's perpendicular to that face, and perpendicular to this face, then that would be my altitude. Okay, remember a long time ago we talked about how do you measure the distance from a point to a line? It must be a perpendicular line. Okay, same thing when you're measuring the distance between two planes. If I wanted to measure the distance from the ceiling to the floor, I wouldn't run my tape measure from where I'm standing in the front of the room to the back of the room and have somebody hold it on the ceiling. Okay? I would measure from the ceiling straight down to the floor on a perpendicular line. That would be my height of the room. Okay? Same thing happens when we're measuring these prisms. So if you want to know the height, you have to look for the little perpendicular symbols. If they don't have them there, then that's probably not a height you're measuring. It's probably an edge. Okay? And edges aren't always going to be the height, so be aware of that. Now, if you tell me, well, we'll get to that in just a second. A right prism or cylinder. When lateral and base edges are perpendicular. When the lateral and base edges are perpendicular, it's a right cylinder or right prism. Okay? And so it looks kind of like this. This first one is a hexagonal prism because its base is the shape of a hexagon. The second one is a cylinder whose base is what shape? Louder, please. A circle. Thank you. If you notice on this right prism here, they're showing that this edge is perpendicular to the top base and this edge is perpendicular to the bottom base. And so they're telling us that this is a right prism when the lateral and base edges are perpendicular. So this edge is perpendicular to this edge. This is the lateral edge. This is the base edge. And this base edge is perpendicular to this lateral edge. Then these are, that makes this a right prism. Okay? The intent here was to draw a right regular hexagonal prism where I tried to make every one of these base edges the same length. That would make that a regular hexagon. Okay? And so we would call this a right regular hexagonal prism. Kind of a mouthful, but just say what it is. Okay? It's a prism. It's right because these edges are perpendicular here and here. And the shape of the base is a regular hexagon. So it's a right regular hexagonal prism. And over here we have a cylinder, and I tried to draw the radius of the cylinder in on both bases to indicate that this edge is perpendicular to that line in the base, in each base, okay, or that segment I should say, and making that a right cylinder. Any questions on what a right prism or a right cylinder is? Okay? Oblique prisms or cylinders. Okay? Actually, these are both cylinders. But let's look at the one on the right first. You notice I tried to draw my base so it was kind of horizontal to the world. And then I drew another one over here kind of horizontal to the world. And so then when I drew my edges in, I tried to indicate that this line here is not perpendicular. Okay? That's what I'm trying to indicate. Or this line in here is not perpendicular. Alright? So it's not perpendicular. So this picture on the left is quite often what I get when I ask you to draw an oblique prism, and I'm telling you that's not a picture of an oblique prism. Okay? It's kind of a rough drawing, but this kind of looks like a pop can that someone just turned on its edge a little bit. Okay? That doesn't make it oblique. What makes it oblique is when the base and the lateral edges are not perpendicular. That's what would make it an oblique picture. So to draw a cylinder that's oblique, again, I try to draw two bases that are horizontal to the world, and then when I connect my sides, okay, they don't look like this line here is perpendicular to this line here, okay, and not perpendicular. Where in this picture here, they drew this like this, and here, and then when they connect them, those edges are still perpendicular. It's just that they've got the whole thing tipped sideways a little bit. Okay? So be aware of that. Be careful when you draw oblique. I'm not asking you to be an A++ art student when you draw these pictures. I'm certainly not, but I'm going to give you a few tips as we go through that will help you to make it clear to me what your intention is. Okay? If you're asked to draw something like this on the test, and you're afraid that you're really not drawing very well, then raise your hand, have me come over and watch you, tell me what you're trying to do, explain to me that you understand that in an oblique prism or an oblique cylinder, this edge and this edge should not be perpendicular. And once you say that, then I might even write okay on there and say, don't worry about drawing it. Okay? I don't want to grade you on your ability to draw. I want to grade you on your knowledge of what is an oblique prism or an oblique cylinder. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay, moving on. Lateral areas. Pause so you can copy these formulas down. So, up to this point, all we've been doing is trying to make sure you understand the vocabulary of what the lesson is about. Now we're going to give you a couple formulas. Now, for a prism, I'm not going to pretend you have to memorize the formula, you have to apply the formula. The fact of the matter is, all you have to do is understand what are the lateral faces, and then find the area of each one. There's going to be 4 of them. Well, I shouldn't say that. If it's a quadrilateral base, there's going to be 4 of them. If it's a pentagonal base, it'll be 5. If it's a hexagonal base, it'll be 6. But anyway, you can find the area of each one of them separately, add them all together, and you'll get the lateral area. But the simple way of doing it is to find the perimeter of the base, find the perimeter of the base, find the height of the prism, the perimeter of the base, the height of the prism, and multiply the two together, and you'll have the lateral area. Okay? That will be the easiest way almost always. That will be the easiest way. Okay? Now, of a cylinder, what shape was the base again? A circle. What's the perimeter of a circle called? Circumference. So you'll notice there's 2 formulas here because we were given 2 formulas to find circumference, weren't we? We're given one when we use the diameter times pi, and we're given another one when we use the radius, 2 pi times the radius. Okay? But what I put in parentheses here in both cases is the circumference of the base. And so that's the same as perimeter. And so really these formulas are the same. They're both saying find the distance around the base, multiply it by the height of the prism. Okay? Surface area. Again, I'll pause so you can copy that down. So, what does LA stand for?
Lateral area.
Lateral area. We just talked about how to find lateral area, didn't we?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's
Perimeter times height.
Perimeter times height, right? If it's a circle, the perimeter is really the circumference. But it's the perimeter times the height. Okay? And so, base area means the area of the base. Why is it 2 times the base area?
There's 2 bases.
There's 2 bases, right? So if I went back to a picture, we had the base down here that I didn't try to draw in. We have this base up here. So we have 2 bases here. We have all these lateral faces. Okay? We could find the area of each lateral face. We could find the area of the base, find the area of this base, and we could add them all together, and that's going to give me surface area, right? So again, I'm not going to try to pretend that the only way to find surface area is to use this formula. It's not. Okay? But again, it's probably going to be the quickest way. Find the area of one base, times it by 2. Okay? Find the perimeter, times it by the height. That's the lateral area. And you're going to have your surface area. Okay? Now for a cylinder, this represents the circumference, right? This represents the area of a Circle, which is the shape of the base, right? It's a cylinder, so the bases are circles. And so it's the base area is pi r squared. The lateral area is circumference times the height. Add those together, and you'll have the surface area of a cylinder.